Hello and welcome everybody. At this point, we all know that Captain Marvel is currently the most powerful Avenger in the MCU, and she doesn't seem to have any major weaknesses. So in this video, we are going to discuss how to defeat and kill Captain Marvel once and for all. But this task is going to be easier said than done. Captain Marvel possesses superhuman strength and durability, can fly at roughly 6 times the speed of sound, retains her seventh sense, that is, she can sense the upcoming danger like Spider-Man, and she also discharges explosive blasts of radiant energy from her fingertips. We know that she can absorb other forms of energy, such as electricity, to further magnify her strength, so us bombarding her with energy is not going to be a good idea. We have already had some of the best moments of Captain Marvel, like going one-on-one with Thanos and taking Thanos' entire ship down without any help and without taking any damage. So now the question is, how do you put to rest such a powerful being which seems to have it all? But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe and press the bell icon so that you will never miss an upcoming video. Without further ado, let's get started. There is a story in comics where Carol Danvers' own brain turns against her. For a brief time during her solo comic in early 2010s, Carol learned her body was actually reacting horribly to her spliced Kree DNA, which was basically turning into some sort of cancer. A malignant mass forced deeper into her brain every time she used her flight powers. Faced with the inability to use one of her most basic powers, Carol Danvers was forced to do some soul searching about what made her a hero. But as we all know, she has incredible physical powers and abilities. However, when it comes to her mind, she can be overpowered. When she is subject to mental or psychological attacks, it is hard to overcome. She is susceptible to brainwashing, mental manipulation, and possession, so characters like Doctor Strange and the Scarlet Witch may have an easier time overpowering her. One of Captain Marvel's greatest power is that she can absorb energy, but there is a limit to how much she can absorb. In the comics, one time when saving the Earth, she uses her energy absorption power to absorb a part of the sun, after which she ends up losing all her powers, and it took her a month to regain it back. That time, she was highly vulnerable and probably was one of the best time to put her to rest. Captain Marvel is also not immune to magic, and she cannot absorb magical spells, which makes her vulnerable against sorcerers like Doctor Strange and the Scarlet Witch. So I guess our best bet at this point would be to use Doctor Strange to bombard Captain Marvel with too much energy than she could handle, like teleporting her to the core of the sun, or using his mystical spells to draw out her power, which is going to be easier said than done. But perhaps there is an easier way, using Captain Marvel's personal flaws to our advantage. As she suffers from memory loss in comics, where her powers, thoughts, and memories were taken by Rogue, Professor X was finally able to restore them, but the emotional attachment was never recovered. This creates a psychological scarring, one that follows Captain Marvel into battle, where she has at times lost her memory and begins fighting for the other team. So yeah, imagine that. Avengers call her to fight Galactus, and midway in the battle, she is like, why am I fighting this big guy? I should be fighting these weaklings that call themselves Avengers. That would be an incredibly funny thing to watch on screen. In the comics, Carol also struggles with substance abuse, as she ends up being an alcoholic. This addiction developed due to all of the trauma she had endured throughout her life. As an adolescent, she had experienced physiological abuse from her father, and she served in military as a young adult, developing PTSD. After becoming Captain Marvel, this further had Carol experience more trauma, so drinking became her coping mechanism. Addiction is a devastating thing, but something that most can relate to in some capacity. Some people get addicted to alcohol, like Carol, others use drugs, and some get hooked on activities. Addiction can be as simple as workaholic, using a smartphone too much, gaming excessively, or drinking too much caffeine. People find a way to cope, and if they don't know how to do it healthily, they develop personal vices. Captain Marvel's weaknesses do not make her less of a hero, they make her more relatable. She has had to struggle with things inevitable to human condition: identity, mental health, emotional and physical exhaustion, etc. And with that, we'll bring this video to an end. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.